Hello, it's Dr. Jim Lowe for Tomlyn Live. Welcome to another episode where we're going to try to talk about your dogs and cats and issues you may be having and try to give you some information to perhaps assist you in the management of them. Again, feel free to post questions throughout this chat. I'll try to get to as many as I can. We've already got quite a few, but really going to be focusing on pet peeves, problem behaviors, things that just make us go, about our dogs and cats, and we'll try to get to, again, as many as we can. And try to alert you to some new information potentially. Again, just recommendations based on about 18 years of private practice experience. Please consult your veterinarian before you change anything about the management of your animal, because again, your veterinarian has the best information as far as your pet's current health status and needs. Jumping right in, we're going to go ahead. You may hear Biggie the Bulldog snoring in the back. Biggie had emergency surgery this week. But he is doing well, but I am at the home office babysitting him, so wish him well, but he may be making a little racket in the back, but welcome to my life and the life of my family. The first question today was about being frustrated with administering medications to your dog, specifically pills, and certainly even in the hands of a trained professional. It can be very difficult to medicate animals. They don't like their people sticking their hands in their mouths. Certainly many times they can tell whether it's a treat or if it's definitely some medicine, which they are not wanting to have. Lots of different tricks to do there. You know, what we like to work with around here is Tomlyn offers the pill masker. And that's just it. It is exactly a masking agent for pills. It's a nice little dough that you can actually form around that pill. Bacon flavored, so it's very easy to give, really easy to hide that pill in there and fool the animal. The nice thing about the pill masker is you can also use it as treats to kind of soften up that animal, get them used to getting that thing as a treat, and then when you need to pop some medication in it every now and then absolutely that's the way to do it. Certainly, if it continues to be a difficult thing to do, always visit with your veterinarian, because depending on the type of medication, there are oftentimes different formulations that are available. There are liquids that might be easier in some situations. There are actually other ways of administering medication, so if it's absolutely just a nightmare to try to do, consult with your veterinary professional, and there may be some options. But give pill masker a chance. Because again, many times, and I can attest personally, Biggie's getting his medicines right now with it. They love it. It makes life a whole lot easier for everybody. The next question was about hairballs and what we can do about hairballs. And remember, first and foremost, hairballs are simply an accumulation of hair in the esophagus or the stomach through repetitive licking. Cats that groom excessively, long-haired cats, cats that lick excessively because of allergies, which is many times a signalment of how itchy they are, ingest a lot of this hair, and it can begin to ball up in the esophagus and the stomach, cause a lot of irritation. With that irritation, they then vomit those things up, and as the person with the question said, you end up stepping on them in the middle of the floor and in other inopportune places. The nature of hairball products, such as the hairball remedy from Tomlyn, is to actually lubricate that hair, ball it up if you will, and allow it to pass normally through the entire GI tract and out into the litter box and not out on your kitchen floor. Multitude of different flavors we have available in a gel form. There are even treats available if you prefer to give that in the manner of a treat. Again, to lubricate that hair mass, allow it to certainly pass on through. As far as preventing hairballs, can be very difficult. Certainly longer-haired cats are going to require a lot more grooming to perhaps keep some of that loose hair under control. There are often diets that you can add. Your veterinarian can visit with you about that. And certainly the hairball remedy is something that in many instances you're going to need on a quite regular basis to try to keep those hairballs passing on through. Let's see, next question. My dog chews up the couch and gets in the garbage whenever I leave the house. What's going on? There again, first and foremost, we want to try to assess what's going on with that dog. The idea would be, are they simply anxious, suffering from separation anxiety from being away? And just as children many times will, animals will act out in defiance, in fear, just because they have this sense of anxiety around them. So certainly what we want to try to do is alleviate any concerns they may have as far as anxiety in the house. Certainly we like to think about products like the Relax and Calm treat from Tomlyn. This is a treat that contains L-tryptophan is an amino acid that helps manufacture a neurotransmitter that provides a sense of calm and wellness for an animal. It also contains a product called chamomile. We're all familiar with chamomile tea and how it has relaxing, mildly sedative effects. This chew also contains ginger, which is going to alleviate some nausea. So in the case of this pet in particular, we might want to place this animal on a product like the Relax and Calm. The advantage is it's not a drug. It is much safer. Many people are reluctant to give their animals drugs, and so we can try this as a mild product to just relax and calm that animal during episodes where we might be away from them. Certainly we want to make sure that they are prevented from getting near the garbage. If that means putting them in a room, consider crating them too. If it's a large crate where they have some toys and a blanket and it's not for an extended period, certainly many times animals feel more secure in a crate. They need that little cave, so to speak, and they're very secure and very comfortable there, and that alleviates much of the anxiety you may experience when you get home and there's a problem. But certainly try to address the anxiety, try the Relax and Calm, certainly try to look around and see if there's other things going on. Behaviors we'll talk about: leaving radios on, leaving the television on, again, confining them to certain areas where they can't get into as much trouble. Lots of different ways to perhaps manage this. Certainly sounds like separation anxiety, and further visits with your veterinarian might give you even more information. Let's see, next question. A cat with inappropriate elimination, meaning we're having some eliminations, both urine and feces, outside of the box. First and foremost with the cats, and we have 4 of them, if you'll recall, with my family, is make sure those boxes stay nice and clean. Cats are very fastidious, as we know, and if they're not cleaned regularly, they show their discontent with that situation by depositing things elsewhere. Certainly if it's a urination problem, if we begin to notice cats that are urinating in various places that should not, certainly evaluate that cat with your veterinarian. Certainly cats with urinary tract infections can begin to eliminate inappropriately. We certainly want to make sure that that's not an issue with that animal. Certainly we can also try to rule out anything form of anxiety. Many cats that are anxious for any number of reasons, again, exhibit that anxiety through inappropriate elimination, simply from fear. So we want to assess what's been going on in the house. Has there been changes? Have there been loud noises? Is there remodeling going on? Is there anything that we think might be disturbing the normal daily behaviors of this cat? Do we have enough litter boxes in the house? Certainly most experts would say that we need at least 1, if not 2 more boxes than there are cats in the house. So simply increasing the number of boxes many times can alleviate some concerns. Distributing them throughout the house. If there's a multi-cat household and one tends to be more dominant, make sure there are other places where perhaps the less dominant cats can go. But certainly a behavior that is usually an indication of an underlying problem, whether that is simply disease or anxiety. But just some things to think about in dealing with that. Let's see here. Speaking of bad behaviors, have a dog that's a notorious counter sniffer and always begging for food, jumping up on the counters and stealing food. I can certainly sympathize with that. It's really a bad behavior, not only because it is inappropriate, because it's unsanitary, but also we run the risk of this critter getting into things it doesn't need to and making himself systemically ill. So first and foremost, try to do simple things, and that would be keep him out of the kitchen. Perhaps put barriers in there. We've used doggy gates children's gates in the past to block things off. Certainly that is always first and foremost. We certainly want to do as many things as we can to alleviate access to those areas. Sometimes that's management with us, making things are tidy, making sure things are put up. I think in this situation, though, the best thing to do perhaps would be just to figure out a way to keep the animal from having access to the kitchen. I don't think it's an anxiety issue. Certainly you may want to visit with your veterinarian regarding its nutritional level, what we're feeding it, are we feeding it enough? Make sure it's getting the normal amount of calories it needs, that it's not simply hungry, and you need to work with that veterinarian to increase its nutritional intake. Might be another area where we perhaps could think about it a little bit as well. Let's see. Multiple scratching posts and toys for my kitty in my house, yet she still prefers the couch and destruction of that couch. Certainly as we look more and more at these cats, we realize they get bored very quickly. We've got 4 of them, we know for sure. One big recommendation is you have to have multiple, various, new, different toys available to these cats all the time. The recommendation is to rotate the toys and rotate those scratching posts, perhaps even monthly, so they're always having a unique something to play with, something to keep their curiosity up, something to alleviate that boredom. Remember also, though, they could also be a sign of anxiety, so don't rule out, again, the relax and calm treats. It's a nice treat form which makes it easy to give. If this is an expression of some underlying anxiety from something's going in the house, while we're trying to identify what that issue may be, providing this supplement may indeed help just to provide a sense of calm, a sense of relaxation to this animal. And in doing so, we might be able whether to tell whether it's simply boredom or if it's some outward sign of being stressed about something going on in the house. Speaking of stress and completely changing gears, had a question about stress in horses. Certainly Epic is proud to offer a product for daily administration to horses to provide immune support. And this question is about horses and their immune system, and does training and trailering put stress on that immune system? And absolutely. When we're blowing and going 24/7, certainly we know those stressors and that activity suppresses our immune system. That's when we're much more likely to contract those mild coughs and sneezes, those colds that we sometimes get. Same things with horses. Horses that are put in those environments that are challenged with trailering, that are challenged with being in various sites, that are simply challenged by daily training, for instance, have a compromise to that immune system, making them more susceptible. And we really are proud to offer a product called Epic Daily for horses. If you'll recall, we've talked about Epic before. Epic stands for Egg Proteins in Complex. Remember, these are hyperimmunized hens that have been vaccinated for horse bugs that are likely to cause pressure on that immune system, that are likely to cause problems with the respiratory tract. Epic Daily is a supplement that we can place in their food once a day, twice a day, I should say, when we feed them, that provides those immunoglobulins, and in doing so provides a boost to that immune system. The nice thing about the Epic Daily as well is it has omega-3 fatty acids in it that are highly anti-inflammatory, that can support the airway of these horses, that can support the coat and keep it nice and shiny. It's also very high in fiber, and we know fiber is very important in supporting the health of that intestinal tract and overall boosting of that immune system. So absolutely, we need to measure that impact that we have, what we're putting our horses through on a daily basis, understanding that that does put a stress on the immune system. And a product like Epic Daily can certainly provide an immune support to that animal, very easily to administer as a top dressing on that feed twice a day when we feed them. Let's see here. Moving back to our dogs. I have noticed that my dog chews and licks at a certain spot on his leg. What could be the cause of this? We mentioned earlier as we talked that excessive licking can certainly be indicative of what we call inhalant allergies or atopy. Animals suffering from inhalant type allergies, again, Biggie the Bulldog we can attest to, tend to have itchy feet, so they lick their feet lots because they itch. They tend to rub their noses because their noses tend to itch quite a bit. And they tend to rub their ears and roll their ears on the side. You may have seen them as they drag them along the floor because their ears tend to itch. And we look in those ears and they seem to be very healthy, but those are just itchy areas related to those allergy symptoms. So what is perhaps could be happening is with your dog chewing and licking at his feet, it may be time to have some discussions with your veterinarian about potential allergy issues. What happens, though, with that excessive licking, and what you may be seeing now is there's actually a sore spot begin to form. And that sore spot is what we affectionately call a hot spot, because they can literally pop up overnight. And what has happened through excessive licking at that spot, your puppy dog has opened up the skin or broken that first barrier in the immune system, which is our skin. That's why when we look at people that suffer extensive burns to their body, why they are so critically ill, because the first line of immune defense, the first layer to protect us from the invasion of bugs, has been removed. So when we break the skin by licking excessively on the leg, now the puppy dog has an open wound where the normal inhabitants, those staph bacteria that lay on that skin, have access. So now we get that spot a little bit infected. Well, with it being infected, it's more irritated, so our puppy dog licks a little bit more. And in licking, it gets more irritated, so we lick some more, it gets more irritated, and we just get into this vicious cycle. And these hot spots can become very large. They are very painful and certainly can require some rather aggressive therapy before they get out of hand. What we like to talk about is, affectionately enough again, a hot spot spray from Tomlyn. It's called hot spot spray for that very fact, because it really addresses the things that we just talked about and what we can do about it. We've already talked about having to that dog licking excessively, so we have to figure out a way to keep them from licking excessively. And inside the hot spot spray is a little bitter apple product that makes that site very bitter. And so when the animal starts to lick, it gets that little bitter taste in its mouth, making it less likely for them to want to lick. We talked about the infection, and inside the hot spot spray is a disinfectant to address that infection and try to get that under control. We also talked about how these things are very, very painful. I can remember in practice my wife and I having to actually sedate animals to shave these areas up, to clean them up, because they are extremely painful, extremely sensitive to the touch. Well, inside of this hot spot spray is a product called lidocaine. Lidocaine actually blocks those pain signals to the brain, so it's going to make that spot feel better, and in making it feel better, much less likely the animal is going to want to lick at it. And then also we have aloe vera in the product, and that aloe is going to actually begin to heal that skin and try to make that thing feel just a little bit better. So within the hot spot spray, we're going to address the infection, the pain. We're going to help it to heal up better, and we're going to get the animal to leave it alone. So certainly something to think about. And again, once it tends to be, these hot spots tend to be related to an underlying issue, and something I would certainly visit with your veterinarian about. Let's see what we got next. There's quite a few being posted here. Let me see if I can get to some of those. Allow me to scroll down here. Let's see. Here we have one that asking about 2 cats. One much, much older, and now we've brought a new cat into the household. And now they're just having a little bit of hard time getting along. Are there things that we can do to potentially allow them to get along better? Certainly, it can be a situation that's going to require a lot of patience. In my past experience, do not be afraid if they kind of keep to themselves for an extended period. They kind of need their own space. They're feeling each other out. So be very, very patient with that. Especially if other than that they get along, they just don't want to do anything together. Again, if we think it's an anxiety issue, if it's something about that we're putting them under these stressful conditions, consider a product like Relax and Calm for both of them, just to alleviate any sort of anxiety. And in doing so, perhaps then much more likely they're going to be a little bit more interactive. But give it time. I think certainly it can take quite a bit of time. Sometimes we want to force things together faster than the cats really want to. And in general, long-term success is going to be much better if you're just a little bit patient with that. Let's see. How do I stop my cat from destroying toilet rolls? Wow. That can be certainly a problem as well. Again, thinking about make sure they have plenty of toys to play with, that there's other things to keep them busy, that there are unique things for them to do. If we can keep those doors to those bathrooms closed, absolutely. Again, try to figure out if there is an underlying issue with anxiety. Try the Relax and Calm for a period of time with this little kitty cat. See if some of that behavior is alleviated. Perhaps we could find a toy that kind of looks like a roll of toilet paper that's certainly manufactured for them to play with. But certainly can be frustrating, but those are some ideas. Just be sure to let us know how that works for you. How many litter boxes for a bunch of cats? Good question. And again, I hope maybe we heard that at the beginning, but it can never be emphasized enough. The goal is, what we learned in school is at least n+1 to n+2. N meaning the number of cats you have in your house. In this case, we have 3 cats in the house, so the experts would tell us at least 4 litter boxes, if not 5. And the recommendation would be to spread those throughout the house. And that sounds like a ton of litter boxes, I know. Take it from us, we have 4 cats. But again, that is the recommendation. So your 3-cat household, 3 boxes is about 1 not enough, if not too few than you need. So see if that doesn't help, and make sure we spread them out around. Again, make sure too, depending on how these cats are getting along, that perhaps there's not some anxiety going on. The Relax and Calm product is certainly something. One idea you might want to have about as well with these 3 cats is we do have an anxiety product for cats that's homeopathic in nature, those natural pet products. Homeopathic products, again, looking at an area of science that's been around for, hundreds and thousands of years. But the homeopathic product for stressed out kitty cats, you can actually put in the water. So it's very easy to give. You can allow those cats to drink from it. It's just going to provide some calmness, alleviate any kind of anxiety, and see if that, along with increasing your number of litter boxes, doesn't seem to alleviate some things and keep them out of a certain corner of your house, as you explained to us. Let's see. Then we have the barking Labrador, constant barking, barking, barking. And again, it could simply be for attention. But one thing we also have to look at is many times barking can be a sign of anxiety. Sometimes for them to voice their opinions about something that's not right, we see them barking. Oftentimes this is animals that are in confinement, that are in a cage, that seem to bark and bark and bark. They are trying to cope with the pressure or stress. In this case, you might want to certainly visit with perhaps a trainer. That could help you with a few things, kind of examine your environment, examine the lifestyle you have with this dog, and certainly make sure that he's had a good wellness check from the veterinarian, that there's not any other underlying problems. But it sounds like perhaps something that with some professional training we can get over the top with. Good luck to you on that. Let's see. Let's see what else we got here. Go back to some that were kicked up earlier. Another horse question. My horse likes to kick up dust within a stable, and I'm afraid it's causing issues with his respiratory system. What are some things we can do to provide relief? And certainly stall management is going to be important. It is not uncommon in dirt stalls or even in stalls that have sawdust type bedding to have to water those things down. Take a water hose and lightly spraying it to knock down that dust. That can be very, very important to alleviate much of that dust. The Epic Daily product that we talked about earlier as well. Within that Epic Daily product are those omega-3 fatty acids we talked about that are going to alleviate a lot of the inflammation in the respiratory tract, keep those airways nice and open. There's also a product in there called a mucolytic, which basically just decreases and turns all that mucus secretions that'll build up in their nose, turns it into liquid so it can come out. Again, supporting a nice open airway. We did talk about the high brand content, giving a lot of fiber to support not only the gut, but to make that coat nice and shiny with the addition of the omega-3s. That might be certainly something to think about in a horse like this. And again, that's stall management. Trying to get the highest quality shavings you can, make sure they're not full of dust. Consider watering down lightly once you apply that to keep that dust down, and certainly keeping that stall as clean as you can. Back to our cats. Is it normal that my cat sometimes sucks on blankets or chews on items lying around the house? I always thought it was just a quirk, but now I'm not sure. It certainly could be a quirk, absolutely, but we also want to make sure that the health of that cat's oral cavity is up there. Consider an evaluation by your veterinarian. Make sure there's not any bad teeth, that there are no inflamed gums. Certainly, we would like to talk about, again, going back to this homeopathy. The Natural Pet Products has a teeth and gums. It's actually now called Oral Health to support the health of that mouth. If this kitty cat is experiencing any sort of oral pain, that could be a way for them to deal with it by chewing on blankets and other things. So I would certainly recommend having that mouth looked at for any underlying issues. That we want to try to put them on a product to keep that mouth as healthy as possible, and then certainly see if that doesn't alleviate the issue, or if it is certainly, again, simply a little quirk that makes them comfortable, and we would proceed from there. Let's see what else we have here. Dog tends to really pull on the leash when we go for walks. Can this behavior hurt her in the long run? What can I do to help her stop? Certainly, I think pulling on that leash more than likely is not going to cause problems, but it certainly makes it sure unfun to go for a walk. It makes it very difficult to control our animal. It can certainly put our animals at risk. So again, probably a behavior issue, a training behavior, and you can certainly visit with your veterinarian who probably has trainers on staff or trainers they're very familiar with that can help you with that, because again, we certainly want to promote exercise in these animals. Exercise is great for the health of those hips and joints. Certainly we have a product here called Joint and Hip to support the hips. As we know, as these animals age, they begin to develop arthritis. So do cats, and we actually have a product for cats as well. But these products contain high levels of those building block materials we need to keep those joints healthy. There's also very high levels of omega-3 fatty acids in there. Remember, we talked about fatty acids being anti-inflammatory. just as they are for the upper respiratory tract. They're certainly healthy for those joints because, again, we want you to go for walks with that dog. We want to support those muscles in the rear end. We want that animal in good shape. So getting him to where he behaves on that leash much more effectively is going to allow us to have a lifelong opportunity to continue to exercise him. The joint and hips, from the nutritional standpoint, will also support those hips so he can have a long, healthy life in regards to his musculoskeletal system. Let's see. Tons of questions. We greatly appreciate that. Let me see if I can get a couple bit more before we sneak out of here. Let's see. Dog has lived with my cats their whole lives and they all get along. Recently, Lowe started chasing them. Is there a reason and how can I stop? Boy, that's a loaded one there. You know, again, animals being animals, it's very hard to say. Certainly we want to see if something has changed. There's some other things going on that we weren't aware of that may have disrupted it. Again, the relax and calm, if there have been management changes, if there's been environmental changes, sometimes putting them on a short period of a relaxing product like the Relax and Calm Chews sometimes can help us rule in or rule out stress as a problem. You know, make sure some of the cats aren't instigating some things that we're just not noticing. But again, could be something, again, potentially you might want to visit with somebody that's trained in specifically behavior modification. And again, oftentimes your veterinary professional is your best source for information on that. Let's see here. My senior dog is doing a whistling noise while laying down. It's actually more whining, but it seems to have been changing. Certainly with the senior dog, you know, unfortunately we begin to worry much more. Take it from us, again, Biggie's not getting any younger and constantly has us concerned about various and sundry things. I think anytime we notice a difference in sound in the breathing of an older animal, we need to have that animal evaluated. Your veterinarian can do a thorough examination of that animal to try to alleviate any possibility that there is a problem with the respiratory tract. Think about senior dogs also. As they age, they begin to develop the problems we talked about with osteoarthritis. It could be a low-grade little pain, generalized pain this animal is experiencing, and that could simply also explain what's going on. Your veterinarian can do a full physical examination to determine whether or not we're developing some arthritis, some joint pain, where a product like the joint and hip might be of benefit. So again, don't take it lightly. I appreciate your calling. You certainly would want to be concerned, and I think a full veterinary examination is greatly called for. All right, we're going to take one more buzz through here and see. I have another question here about what appears to be on a rescue dog, a hot spot. Just to remind you again about our hot spot spray. The fact that it's a spray makes it really, really nice. As we talked about, these sites are very, very painful. So the fact that we can spray and not have to rub or touch makes it much more pleasant for the dog and the owner as well. And remember, inside that product is not only a disinfectant for that skin, but some lidocaine to actually make that spot feel better, a licking deterrent, as well as some proteins to help begin to heal that skin. Also, as a reminder, it's a secondary problem. There's something else going on with that animal that started the licking in the beginning. So touch base with your veterinarian to see if we can find what the underlying problem was, whether it was a bite wound or an allergy or something like that. But just make sure you get that checked out. But again, the Allercane, the hot spot spray as we like to call it, might certainly be beneficial in that scenario. Well guys, I'm going to have to check out of here. I greatly appreciate all these calls and all these questions. If we didn't get to your questions, we'll make every attempt to get those answered within the next 24 hours. Remember, you'll be part of a drawing for $50 of free Tomlyn products. Continue to friend us, continue to post questions. We'll get to any and all of them as best we can. We always appreciate your support. And on behalf of all the Tomlyn team, we do appreciate your time and wish you well. Thanks.